Okay, so this next one we're going to be covering the metal section, kind of like I talked about. But before we do that, let's go ahead and duplicate this layer and do what I was talking about earlier with this whole middle board stuff. Because again, middle board's looking a little weak right now. So let's go ahead and copy the mask, apply a black mask. We're going to paste into mask. Sorry. There's that. Okay, so there's the mask. So at this point, I'm going to come into the the middle board. We're gonna. I think we found it at the gradient section, the cavity. Yeah, we were talking about the world space. So look at that. So let's bring the cavity through. Already looks like it's up to snuff with the rest of those guys. Maybe let's look at the AO too. Yeah, I want to keep the AO. The spread the same. It's gonna look out of whack here. Cool. That looks cool. So the next thing, and probably the last thing, I'm trying to think of how I want to handle this. So let's duplicate this one more time. Also, when you switch between these layers of SoMuchDiffuse, your computer chugs a bit. So just be careful when you're working with a ton of them at once, because it's a bit heavier of a material to have applied. So just be aware of that. So I paste that in here. Gotta call this wooden wheel. Slide this up. Black mask. And I'm gonna do this guy. Let's hit F1 again. That's one. That's another piece. Those are another pieces. Doot, doot, doot. I believe that guy. Yep, that's the last piece. Okay, so I think that's that. Yeah. Let's just double check. Let's just crank this all up. Okay, so I got all of them. So that's just a way to quickly check that. So again, we're going to try and avoid doing any particularly world space style like gradients, top to bottom, things like that. The biggest one probably I'm going to think of right now is the underlight. Man, that helps so much though. So this is something I'm probably going to actually paint out myself then. I think that's the way I'm going to handle that, because that's just really. Well, actually no. I lied. Let's keep it like this, because I think there's another effect going on down here. It's not cavity. Specular is okay, because again we talked about having the a particular alignment for the wooden grooves and all that stuff. I want the thickness, because that's uniform. AO stays on. Top down, that's going to come off. So now that looks a bit odd to me, because now we have a situation where this matches really well with this. So maybe what I'll do is just turn on just the slightest bit, because again, it's okay if there's a little bit of breakup, but in my experience, when you try to have like a really heavy vertical gradient or something like this, let's say it looks like, it's not working here. Let's just say it's really blue down here and really not blue up there, right? It's just like the regular wooden color. You're gonna see the starker the contrast, the more noticeable it's gonna get when this thing is moving. But I mean, this is pretty subtle, I feel like. And even moreover, we can also define the different wooden pieces here, because there definitely are two different wooden pieces. As far as I'm concerned, that's what the material read is supposed to read as. Like, you want this to be a different wood than this one, and the grain indicates that, because it's running a bit differently. But having some color variation is not going to hurt either. So maybe I'll just dial it back just a little bit. Oh, so this is AO. I'm sorry. I'm goofing this up. So we want the AO. And then we don't want the top down. That was what I was talking about. Okay, so let's close the AO section. Or we can just crank up the spread and just drop this down just a little bit, trying to make it to match the overall tone. So this seems to match okay, but it's also pretty tucked in between this wheel well, so I feel like the AO is going to be pretty intense. So let's actually turn that AO back up. And then I want it to be just a little darker. And even though I'm cheating, I'm trying to cheat the AO by also doing this gradient, this top to bottom one, because even though I can turn up the AO, and I am, it's not really getting what I want out of it. And I want it to be kind of neutrally dark all around, because again, at any given time, this part of the wheel may be on the inside and this may be on the outside, because again, it rotates, right? So I want to try and push this darkness a little bit more, which I can do with the top down. My only issue now is this dark part. So it seems pretty uniform other than this guy right here. So something I can do to fake that when I get into this painting session with this is to actually take this highlight and put it around a few different places, because it also, you know, having a highlight that kind of fades off and drops off of a curve implies that there's kind of a default value for the light to be hitting it at. You know, I'm going to paint it like it's a static object, but instead my way of compensating is you pick a few default spots, like maybe like the peaks of this like somewhat circular object, and I might paint some highlights right here, make it a bit dark, and then paint them right here, make it dark all the way around to here, paint some highlights, paint a highlight to catch here, and then maybe on the lip of that. So that way, when there's rotations around it, the slight difference in lighting will be noticeable, even though you're moving it. But it's a good noticeable, because it implies there's actually movement going on, because you want to see some difference in color, because otherwise it's not going to look like it's moving. So it looks a bit hacky and a bit cheaty, but honestly, at the end of the day, I think it's preferred over just having no light source at all. That, you know, so that's my opinion on that. That's up to you as an artist, how you want to handle that. But you'll see how I do that in the painting session. So I'm happy with this. I think this looks pretty neat. So the next thing we're going to move on to then is the metal. So I'm actually going to duplicate this wood one down here, because remember I talked about how this underlight, you want to stay consistent. So I actually want to make sure that's being splashed up onto the metal, but I want to change the rest of the properties of this. So let's go ahead and mask out let's do this so we can see the difference. Oh, so let's also open just the 3D viewport only so we can see this a bit better. We'll do color selection. Grab those. Oh, that's already looking dope. Okay, grab orange. Grab that. Grab the bands. Nice. That's sick. I love this. And then I also want to grab that. Oops. I guess this side. And then one more. Grab this. Cool. So check that out. A lot of accents. A little too bright, I think. A little too silvery for my taste, but we'll dial this in pretty well. So I'll turn this back on because we know that this is working now. And then we're going to go up here and just try to play with these settings. So I have the light where I want it, and I have the underlight where I want it as well. So I think the best way to do this, so I'm going to be careful, because if I were to come in here and just do this, it's going to totally wipe all the settings I have for everything. So presets are a complete way to just destroy anything you did and restart, which can be good, it can be bad. So in this case, I have important settings in here I want to keep. So I'm going to stay from preset. I said I wanted to make this kind of a blue, not purple though. You know what? Let's do this instead. Let's work off of a metal preset, actually. And then I'll go in and I'll actually dial in the light settings based on the other one. Or just maybe to kind of have some experimentation, because these two things right here are going to describe the color of this for the most part, and your specular, of course. So if I can get some results that I like, so I like that. Silver soft, that's pretty purple. It's a little too intense for my taste, though. So usually metal is described by its specular color rather than its base color. So this might help to kind of dial this back just a little bit. especially on the edges as well. That's pretty intense. Yeah, there's a lot of properties that actually get added when you change the presets, which is why it's so important you're careful with those. Man, that's frustrating because it's, I think, bringing the red in from the underlight. So let me turn off the underlight, see if that changes it. Oh yeah, that makes a huge difference. Okay, so we'll want to dial both of these back pretty heavily. Because even though the colors look really nice on the wood, it's turning out like poop right now on this. So let's go back up to the specularity. So I don't want that moonlight color coming through a bit. That's really intense though. Yeah. What sucks is that this metal is facing down a lot, so I feel like a lot of the cool properties of metal aren't gonna shine through a whole lot. Which is why I think I'm gonna try and just make sure this looks the way it needs to. Which isn't too. So what I might do to fake this a bit is try and maybe change the height of this. Yeah, because now it's starting to pick up on these edges a bit more. Just sucks because I love working with metal, even though I might not be the best at painting it, but metal just really helps. I feel like tie together a lot of stuff, especially with wood. So I think what I might try to do then is maybe put some of these nails around here just to help break this up, because it's really monotonous. It's really just solid wood color, right? So I think it could use from one more layer of breakup. Not quite sure what it is off the top of my head because I got to experiment with it, but I'm gonna just dial back the rotation of the lights. They don't seem to be changing it a whole lot. Dude, look at that. All right, edges. That needs to be like something that matches that. Let's do. Creates kind of a cool effect though. See, what's really neat too about some of this grunge that comes through because of the cavity is this gives you a nice base to work off of when you're actually trying to define planes, and then like maybe even painting some grunge yourself. Is it these little random splotches? Just use them to your advantage, and I'll discuss that when I get to the painting section of it. But ooh, that is hella blown out. Not really sure why that is, to be honest with you. I might try to exaggerate this a bit more when I get into the painting. What I'll do is I'll paint out the edges here, but I won't paint them out up here because that's where I care about them. And I'll probably honestly paint in some of that like a huge streak that runs across it because, quite frankly, it looks a bit dull and flat, and that's not what I'm going for. This point, I'll probably say to myself, okay, like it seems like it's a bit blown out, and I'm not getting the effect that I want. So I can sit here all day and dial in, all these different dials, but it's like, dude, I can just grab a color and paint over it because I'm looking at base color right now. So to be honest, that's probably what I'm gonna do. Oh, that changes a lot actually. What did I do? I think it was AO. I'm turning off the AO. Screw it. Let's do that. That's kind of neat. Yeah. I think, and as an artist, especially when doing stylized art, I mean, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. I mean, this looks like ass right here, so I probably want to fix that, and I can paint all that out. But what's cool is I have the colors that I need everywhere else now. I have my darks, I have my light points, or at least some of them a little bit. I'd say probably like this color, and I want to maybe try and get it to be a bit more neutral. I just don't know where this peach color is coming from. Oh, you know what? I think it was probably somewhere from up here. Turn on my thickness. Yeah, I don't know. I really dig this. I think this could be metered out a bit more, and I can play with this when it comes down to the layers and Photoshop and whatnot. But I think for the initial setup, I'm happy. I like this. I like how stark it is. And then I'll probably end up biting myself or kicking myself in the ass later with this. But I can always paint it out because that's the wonders of it being a base color. So that's kind of how I like to go over SoMuchDiffuse. That's how I like to use it to my advantage. And then in the next video or series of videos, I'll just be probably just painting and doing a speed paint and just talking over it. Just a total fair warning, I haven't done hand painting in over like 4 months because I took a break from it to do other stylized work, so I am 100% going to be rusty at it. And I might make a lot of stupid decisions when painting this, but for the sake of completing the video, completing the series, and then seeing it all come together, I think it's worth having me go through it and fumble through it anyway. So I appreciate you guys watching until this point. If all you wanted was a basic setup on SoMuchDiffuse, you can hop off the video now. Otherwise, I'll have probably another video or two, maybe even more, of me painting over it. So it's going to be a longer series, but I think it's worth it. So I will catch you in the next video. Deuces.